All right, Madam Clerk, it appears we have quorum. We're calling this meeting to order. If you want to read the evacuation.
Upon activation of the emergency alarm signal, all persons should immediately exit the building. Please use the exits to the left or right front of the council chamber or the east or west stairwell outside the rear doors of the chamber. Do not use elevators or escalators. After exiting the building, proceed to the assembly area located in front of the Department of Social Services building at 900 East Marshall Street. Able persons should assist visually and hearing impaired visitors when exiting the building. Public speaker guidelines. Individuals wishing to speak during public hearings and the public comment period are generally allowed 3 minutes to speak. Persons appearing before the committee are not allowed to campaign for public office, promote private business ventures, use language of a personal nature which insults or demeans any person, including comments directed at public officials or staff members that are not related to their official duties, or address or question staff members directly. All questions are to be directed to the committee chair. Failure to adhere to these guidelines may result in speakers forfeiting any remaining time, and further disciplinary action is necessary, which could include barring from attendance at future meetings of the committee for a period of 6 months. Members of the public who register in advance to speak virtually will be called at the appropriate time, either during the public comment period or during the public hearing for which the legislation on which they sign up to address. And Madam Chair, all members are in attendance today, with the exception of Ms. Jones, and you do have a quorum.
All right. Any members of the public here to speak on public comment, both online or in person?
Public comment period is now open. Is there anyone present who wishes to address this committee regarding items not on today's agenda? Please state your name for the record and you can proceed with the comments.
Good evening. My name is Nancy Williams. I'm with Three Gifts to You. As always, I thank you all for all that you do. I actually can stand here and say I have had clients that have benefited from the services that are being provided by the city now. And the thing I do have a couple of things. One of them is, number one, as I was coming into the city, coming into the city over there on well, Lothian, a concern is that we have the providers or the people that are the counselors, and they're putting them in the hotels over there. All that's great, but I have people that are in the city that are asking for food. So they're being put in the hotels, but they're not being provided the food. That's a concern, because now you got to call all over the place, and the people that's driving, they are coming up to the cars and they're asking for food. So I asked them, did you get any help? Do you need anything? And they was like, oh no, I have crisis. I'm in a hotel right now. Really? You don't have any food? I think we need to look at that a little bit more. If you want to provide the services, providing food for your clients is part of the ordeal. And so that's my main concern right now. And as I was saying the last time with Mark Ford, I don't like using names, but that he was a veteran and he was a double amputee. And I have a concern. How do you go through 2 and 3 tours across the seas, the waters, and come back and die in the streets of Richmond? I can't shake it. So that's all I have to say, and thank you for all you do.
Yolanda's Neighbor, Blessing Warriors. First of all, thank you for opening up the overflow shelter ahead of time this time. That worked out much better. But I do have one concern. We had a family of 6 children showed up, and I verified this with Ms. Wilmore that it was a warming shelter as well. They said they wanted to come in there and get warm and something to eat. They were threatened that if they did not stay because they were homeless, that CPS was going to be called on them. This family, it has taken me 6 months plus to get her to come to a shelter. Now she says she will never come because her kids will be taken from her. This is the impression she got. All she wanted to do was feed her children and get them warm in the middle of a storm. How does one individual? It was so bad. We gave her money to go get them something to eat. We had plenty of food, but she couldn't stay. They were told to leave if they weren't going to stay all night. How is that allowed to go on? Somebody has to answer for that. This woman, so right now, we're paying for her in a hotel because she's finally at the stage to go to a shelter. Now she won't go because her kids are going to be taken away from her. Next thing I want to know, I don't know if you're aware of the incident that happened this morning, but someone needs to control the security guards at these shelters. And if city council wants to see the video, I have the video where a security guard threatens individuals with her gun. I have a gun and I will use it, is what she said exactly. And she proceeded to throw bottles against the wall. This is security of a homeless shelter where 95% people have mental illness. And all the guy did was bring a cooler of food inside the building. And she went completely off. Miss Wilma asked her to go inside to calm it down. While she was talking to the gentleman, this woman, complete havoc inside. Complete havoc. Who's controlling this? This is the same company at the Salvation Army where me and Miss Wilma had it out. They're too young. They haven't matured to the point where somebody can call my name and they can walk away. 20, 25 years old, they haven't gotten to that stage yet. But you keep putting them in charge of people with mental illness. We told them this 2 years ago. And you still have these young kids taking care of people with mental illness.
You have 30 seconds.
They called my name and they threatened them with a gun twice. And at one time put a hand on her gun.
Good afternoon. My name is Bridget Whitaker. Thank you, Madam Chair and staff for allowing me time to speak. And I want to piggyback on what Ms. Sneed mentioned regarding the care and procedures for care at all of our shelters here in Richmond. I come to you concerned. As a security officer myself, I had opportunity to review the video that was available at the shelter during this incident, and I am concerned. I've mentioned before, we have a powder keg situation ready to blow. If we do not get serious about putting good procedures and staff in place to address not only the mental illness of our unsheltered, but also the substance abuse of our unsheltered. By admission of Mr. Shazo and Ms. Ford during our last meeting last month, they both, on record, roll the video back, admitted that they do not and are not skilled enough to handle what we are trying to do. I'm also concerned because I was able to read and review admission of the amount of money that is put into our services, unsheltered services, human services programs. I think I remember seeing about 9 or 10 million by admission of Mr. Shazo that is going into our services. They both admit we still do not have the resources available to address the homeless and unsheltered situation we have here, that I'm sure the numbers are still not being reflected correctly. We know by the amount of clients we are serving, we're close to triple of what's actually being reported. You have a situation not only with your security, and please get serious about this. What I saw and I know as a professional, you cannot put those
You have 30
children
seconds.
in these environments untrained, unskilled, and a hot plate. That woman is going to hurt someone. Please get her out of our shelter system. Thank you.
afternoon. My name is LaRon Gibson. The last time I came here, I didn't have any high praise for anybody on council that had anything to do with that homeless shelter right up the street here. I'm just grateful now that y'all have it open, but there's still a lot more work to be done there. Ms. Sneed and Ms. Whitaker just now said that there was a huge incident this morning. I also seen the video. It's very unprofessional, and if at the end of this y'all get to see it, I hope something's done immediately about that. But that's half of the point that they were just now saying as far as how that shelter is run. When the city was running the shelter before, the Daily Planet and Blessing Warriors got involved. It was chaos. Blessing Warriors came in with the Daily Planet, and it was all smooth sailing. That's on video. As soon as Blessing Warriors and Daily Planet left, it went back to chaoticness. And it shouldn't be, because, in my opinion, I would feel that if there's no one in the city that's staffed to do any sort of mental health evaluations or to deal with anyone, why doesn't the city just reach out to someone and have them come over to these shelters? Like they just now said, you got all sorts of ideas, energies, orthodox and unorthodox, coming into those doors, and nobody knows how to deal with it. Even the city themselves, and there's more videos that the clients themselves have recorded to show that they're being very unprofessional. Now, granted, if you're already unhoused, homeless, however you want to call it, you're already showing that you're being humble to even come to the city to ask for help. Then once you get to the city and the city's showing you that they're being disrespectful and not even talking to you with dignity, why would anybody want to listen, you know? I'm just asking if that y'all were to keep these shelters open, to try to have somebody there that can deal with or has the capacity to deal with the mental health illnesses that's going on in there as well, to try to make this at least a little bit more smoother. So an incident where there's a security guard getting ready to pull a gun on somebody that's helping bring some food and to help feed the shelter, mind you. That to me is uncalled for. And at least on her note, I'd like to see something done about that immediately. That could be any security guard over there and that will fall back on y'all as the city too. So if y'all can y'all find someone, or even the Daily Planet, that has the training to deal with these mental health illnesses, because that's where a lot of this clash is coming from. I'm not trying to knock the city for what they're doing, because I did ask for y'all to try to open the shelters, and I'm
You have
grateful
30
that y'all did.
seconds.
Yes, ma'am. But again, if you have all these different energies, ideas, and things coming into that door, and no one can deal with it, what would y'all expect to happen? Now, that's all I got for today. But thank y'all for y'all's time.
Thank you. And I think we will have updates from DCO, DeSazier later, and Ms. Ford, so you all can help update us on those and speak to that. All right. Well, we will move on to and thank you all for coming down and sharing your thoughts with us. It is very important for us to get that feedback so that we can take it back and try to move it to action. With that, wanted to get an update on our Richmond Resilience Initiative, and I believe that we have Derek. Are you here?
Madam Chair, I'm
there
going
you
to
are.
close public comment period. Seeing no one else and no one signed up for the 10 a.m. deadline, the public comment period is now closed. Back to the committee.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, Mr. Wayway, do you want to begin your presentation?
Good afternoon. My name is Derek Wadley, and I'm the Program and Operations Supervisor for the Office of Community Wealth Building. I'm also the Program Manager for the Richmond Resilience Initiative. And today I want to talk a little bit more about our project and how we're moving forward. Thank you. Definitely want to acknowledge our council members. Thank you also very much for your time. Anyway. Of course, the Richmond Resilience Initiative is one of the more exciting projects that I've ever worked on. This particular project is really and truly about a program that's not just for or about financial assistance, but it's about transforming lives through economic mobility and financial stability. The Richmond Resilience Initiative was launched as part of the National Mayors for a Guaranteed Income Initiative founded by former mayor of Stockton, California, Michael Tubbs. It's been going on since 2019. And in that time, over 100 cities and counties in 16 states and Washington, D.C. Have implemented guaranteed basic income projects. RI is designed to specifically to help working individuals who earn above the threshold of public assistance, but still struggle to meet the financial needs and their obligations. This program promotes a hand up, not a handout approach, empowering individuals to take control of their financial well-being. The purpose of our project is, of course, promotes the hands up versus handout approach, supports individuals who earn above the threshold for public assistance, but do not make a living wage, helping them to address the benefits cliff. It also, too, empowers working families. It provides $500 a month in unconditional cash payments for 24 months to eligible Richmond residents. This equates to an hourly wage increase of approximately $2.89 an hour. Very interesting that that small amount infused into an individual's normal income can have this resounding of an effect over the course of that two-year period of time. So $2.89 worth of an investment really and truly helps to move a family forward. It enriches family success, enables parents to secure educational resources like tutoring or enrichment opportunities, and expand access to extracurricular activities for children, as well as increase time for family engagement. And then finally, it enhances financial stability. Helps recipients cover emergency expenses, reduce debt, improve credit, build savings, and work towards long-term financial goals. Our cohorts, we've been very, very fortunate in that since its inception in 2020, we've been able to navigate through just about three, let me say that, cohorts. Our first, of course, in 2020, through 2022, we had 18 participants, and of course, each one of them received $500 a month for 24 months. And we were able to secure funding through our philanthropic organizations that's connected with the Mayors for a Guaranteed Income, i.e. Twitter, as well as a local foundation, the Robbins Foundation, provided funding for the first cohort. Of course, the second cohort, same funding level, but of course, we were working with 46 participants, $500 a month for 24 months. But we also, too, was able to add the Community Foundation as a part of the contributors to help to support our efforts in terms of financing our second cohort. And then, of course, our third cohort, which is we're working with the Help Me Help You Foundation, and we're working with returned citizens, receiving the same level of stipends a month or infusion a month, but we're working through ARPA funds. So, of course, a different funding resource, but we've been able to continue on through three cohorts, and thank the good Lord, to council that you all were able to provide, for $500,000 for our fourth cohort, which we're currently putting together. So our impact, of course, the Center for Guaranteed Income Research with the University of Pennsylvania generated a beautiful report for us, and I definitely want to make for certain that you all get your hands on that as related to our first cohort. And these are some of the findings. Of course, the participants experienced financial stability. They were able to save money or create savings, at which they started out at 20% of the cohort that had a level of savings. But by the time we got to the end of that particular project, 59% of those individuals were able to save money. Of course, monthly savings doubled amongst that cohort. It went from $147 a month to, when they got to the end of that particular pilot, $305 a month was what they were able to save. Debt and credit growth, pay down debt and improve credit scores. That's very key in terms of what we're trying to do as it relates to home ownership and getting them aligned in spaces where they can be a little bit more financially free and stable in their approach. Participants progress towards home ownership, just indicated that. Career advancement, pursue certifications and better jobs. The beauty of how our pilot or how our project is set up, we work, of course, through the Office of Community Wealth Building. We do workforce training and development. Those individuals who lose a job along the way, they have an opportunity and they're already, aligned with workforce that can help them to, restand their situation up, as well as get certifications and build those skills to help them become just a little bit more self-reliant in their career pathways. And of course, shift it from gig work to full-time careers. quality of life, of course, finally. Participants were able to acquire family time, or they acquired family time. That's something that I think a lot of us take for granted. But individuals who are working all the time and who simply cannot get beyond the workspace, definitely you were afforded this opportunity, and you will see in some of the pictures in the slides just some of the things they were able to do. And of course, reduce stress and gain greater stability. I mentioned the Center for Guaranteed Research Center for Guaranteed Income Research at the University of Pennsylvania. Of course, I indicated as well that I wanted to make for certain that you got this, got our report. This report was crucial in shaping the narrative and policy discussions around economic justice, financial stability, and the future of universal cash advancement or assistance programs in Richmond. It highlights RRI's impact from 2019 to 2024. And of course, we've been able to connect with another research institute, and that's Virginia Commonwealth's Social Equity, or Research Institute on Social Equity. This is amazing, and this right here is very important because we have a research organization that's local, that's been watching the work of the Office of Community Wealth Building for quite some time prior to the pandemic, and are very, very interested in what we're able to do or what we've been able to do with guaranteed income. So working forward or moving forward with that organization, they're working on creating a longitudinal study for our second and our third cohorts, where they're looking at points in time to make certain to understand and know where individuals are when they start with guaranteed income, what happens while they're receiving guaranteed income, and what's going to happen, or what potentially happens to an individual 6, 12, 18, 24 months out. Of course, finally, our fourth cohort. I didn't indicated that we're working diligently to put together our fourth cohort. This is some of the eligibility requirements. Of course, this particular cohort is centered around single parents, and that's mothers and fathers, single parents. To be eligible for this cohort that's coming up, of course, you got to be a City of Richmond resident. You have to have at least one child 18 years or younger in the household. You got to be employed, earning at least $12.71 per hour, but not exceeding the living wage in the city of Richmond. However, this threshold falls below the estimated living wage necessary for financial stability. The living wage for a single individual in the city of Richmond is $21.85 an hour. And of course, as it relates to our particular project, you got to have a child. So what that looks like is a single individual with one child. They can't make any more than $36.28 an hour. And a single individual with two children, $45.81 an hour. And a single individual with three children, $59.04 an hour. So it just gives you an idea as for the how broad in terms of what our participants make as it relates to living in the city of Richmond and what is required for an individual who has children and who are trying to make it out here in our society. Anyway, I'd like to take this time to thank you definitely again for allowing for me to come up and communicate and present about the Richmond Resilience Initiative. I want to say thank you to some of our partners who are here to help you Foundation Administration. They're here. And of course, the staff from OCWB, want to thank them for all their efforts and how they've helped me along the way these last 4 or 5 years with the Richmond Resilience Initiative. And a special thanks to our DCAO, our current DCAO, who was my project director when she first came on board, and what she did in terms of just steadying what we do with the Richmond Resilience Initiative and guaranteed income, and the connections that she's been able to make for us or aligned us with to help us to continue on with this type of project. And that person is Ms. Tracy DeShazer. So I appreciate you so, Tracy. All right. Thank you all. Any questions?
You. What a radical notion that you can reduce poverty and build wealth by redistributing wealth and reducing poverty. Wow. It's like so novel.
Yeah.
So committee members, questions?
Hey, how are
Hey,
you?
I'm good.
Thank you for your presentation.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a quick couple of questions. One, you mentioned the new cohort that is going to be coming out.
Yes.
My question to you is, how has the community been involved in shaping, what this new cohort is going to look like and supporting the initiative of the new cohort?
Well, of course, with this new cohort, we're soliciting our partners in the community to help us to actually do the recruitment portion of it. So you got several organizations that work with single parents. Of course, we're only going to be working with 40 individuals, so we got to be conscientious in terms of our marketing schemes and how much we cast out. But we're going to make for certain that those organizations that are working with individuals who meet the criteria, that they are involved in that process. And definitely, in terms of the other things that we're doing with the Office of Community Wealth Building, aligning their participants in what it is that they're doing with our workforce training and development in a variety of other programs and projects that we have with OCWB.
So essentially, we going through our partners, not the city is not leading that recruitment.
We'll be going through our partners, but we'll also too have a site set up at OCWB on our website where individuals can go online and they can apply through that. And then we'll also too have paper copies for those individuals who may very well have difficulties navigating the systems to apply.
And I'm sorry, I was writing them down on the different pages. Sorry. You may be able to speak to this, I'm not sure, but like as far as the citywide, like larger goals or the broader goals of like economic and social justice, like how are we aligning this program to that?
Well, of course, just making certain that our participants understand and know the nature of how those things affect economic mobility and what we're trying to do in this guaranteed income space. Wanting to make for certain that as we move forward, that those individuals are given every opportunity to connect deeper in our communities, but more than anything, to highlight, what our partners are able to do and what they're capable of doing as it relates to guaranteed income and how we can connect with them so we can move the initiative forward. Ultimately, too, our big goal is, to move this from policy or from a pilot into policy. We ultimately want and need the advocacy piece, and we need that piece from partners as well as citizens to understand and know the nature of what we're doing here and how successful it is. But more than anything, to continue to push to allow for this to be something that is more on a continuum, not having to constantly solicit for funding from council, that, we have policies and procedures in place. So there's a buy-in for every individual that's involved. The big national conversation is about guaranteed income for all individuals. If you're not making a living wage in your community, then we have a responsibility and an obligation to make for certain that, we're able to infuse the supports. So it's about garnering, an understanding about what we're doing with guaranteed income, but more than anything, getting folks to really push to help us to make this, type of a project or this type of a concept be realized.
So you do see it more on like a larger state level.
We certainly do, and that's the objective. We're supposed to have our big conference in Washington this year, Washington, D.C. this year. It was out in San Francisco at a point. Okay, come on. It was out in San Francisco.
One second, Derek.
Okay.
Thank you. So, Councilwoman Jones, thank you for the question. I'm going to answer it just slightly differently. So this is the City of Richmond's Guaranteed Income Program, but guaranteed income looks different ways at different levels. And so when you look at the federal level, arguably the child tax credit is a form of guaranteed income. And there is certainly advocacy amongst our members of our congressional delegation. And Councilwoman Lynch, I know you're aware of this, to continue advocating for continued child tax credits. There was also, before she entered Congress, then at the time, State Senator Jennifer McClellan did introduce legislation in her last year in the Virginia State Senate to have a state level then child tax credit as well. So there's certainly advocacy at all levels, but the city of Richmond was actually the first city in the Commonwealth of Virginia to stand up such a program. And we are now one of only just a few in the Commonwealth, with other localities being Arlington County, Alexandria City, Charlottesville is actually looking into one, and then also Fairfax County as well. But the city of Richmond and Loudoun County, excuse me, but the city of Richmond continues to lead in the space. So there are various types of guaranteed income. And then there are various formations of different pilots around the country. What we have seen as one of the most effective forms of guaranteed income has been when it's focused on those single parents. We have learned this through our research, through the work that we've done to engage with cohorts around the country, and at some of those national convenings that Derek was just alluding to as well. So hopefully that answers the question. And then more broadly,
it directly aligns with the work of the Office of Community Wealth Building and really their strategic work that they're doing now, looking towards the next 10 years as they just commemorated their first 10 years. Capricia Smith-Spellman, the director of the office, is here. And one of the things that we've been working very closely to align our efforts with is the Urban Institute's Upward Mobility Framework that does have a number of pillars. In the coming weeks, we'll actually be bringing more before council on those efforts as well. But this particular program, it works.
Oh,
It works.
yeah, I'm not doubting that. I was
Yeah.
just trying to get some
The
framework around it to kind of understand, and just based off of, the report really quick. I know you mentioned there's you said something about you did a study or a research partner. So I guess my other question is, do we have data that supports this where we say, yeah, can we quantify this and be able to see the data that goes with this on the financial stability and those things that he named?
We do, and we can follow up. So Derek mentioned this in his presentation. So we did actually partner with the University of Pennsylvania on the first cohort. Now, remember that first cohort was then funded in direct partnership then with Mayors for a Guaranteed Income. So the University of Pennsylvania supported not only the city of Richmond, but a number of jurisdictions across the United States. For the second and the third cohorts, we didn't have that partnership in place with the University of Pennsylvania. That was funded also by Mayors for a Guaranteed Income, but we were able to then form the partnership that Derek mentioned with the Virginia Commonwealth University's Research Institute for Social Equity. That's under the leadership of Dr. Nakina Douglas Glenn, and then previously she was with VCU's Gelly or Gracie Harris Leadership Institute on that side, and that's in the Wilder School.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Once we have that data, we'll certainly share that on the second and third cohorts also.
Would love to be able to present to you our data from our first cohort. So I'll make for certain that you get, that particular report from the University of Pennsylvania. So you'll have that just kind of as a guide. And of course, all of our pilots are set up more or less on that model. We want to make for certain that there was consistency and continuity in that space. So we'll definitely make for certain that you have that. And that'll give you a general idea as for what we'll be looking at as it relates to that report that will ultimately get generated with VCU's Research Institute on Social Equity.
I was going to ask if we have the expectation, is there city funding that also supports this? I've heard all the places where funding has come from. I also heard $500,000 was mentioned. So is the city supporting this right now? And
not currently, but we're working on this fourth cohort, and the city will be supporting that with the $500,000 infusion that we got from council, got approved, per council in last year's budget. So yeah, the city of Richmond will be sponsoring this fourth cohort.
And I suppose then, and how much of that goes straight to the checks versus like the operating, and also what fraction of the total cost of the program is that $500,000?
Okay. Well, we of course first have to start with a financier or a third-party organization that distributes the fund. 5% likely will come out of that, but the rest of it in total will be donated or be contributed to actually handing out the stipends to the participants.
And I'm interested to know, we're measuring metrics and things. Would there be some level of metrics for which we would decide, it turns out this is actually not successful enough? You know what I mean? Like, are there standards that we have to say, yeah, this is good, and it's good, and it's also the right place we're putting our money, versus this is good, but actually there are other things that are better?
Yeah, this is great, and I will say that. And I think the city's spending the funding really, in a very, very proactive sort of way. To answer your question, though, as it relates to that 500, or as it relates to, I lost my chain of thought. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Could you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, my question was like what's the benchmark that we have to reach to say that is actually successful enough to continue funding? Is there some number, this many people with this much better credit, with this much better savings?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily a number. Mm-hmm. What I think more than anything, it's about sustainability. What's been determined is that when you give people guaranteed income, that it has a resounding effect on reducing the effects of poverty. May very well, like I said, it's $2.89. That's what you see over the course of 2 years as it relates to the pilot. But at this particular point, it's about policy, and it's about a higher level of sustainability. We've got to get to the point to where we've gone from piloting, we're piloting all over the country. So it's about legislation, it's about advocacy, it's about lobbying for this type of a concept. I'm sorry.
Good afternoon, Shonda Singleton. I'm the case manager for Help Me Help You, and I have worked hand in hand with participants within our program, utilizing.
Wait, no, microphone, please.
Oh, sorry. Utilizing the Mayor's Guaranteed Income Program with many of the participants. We had 30 participants, and what I would say, it was instrumental. We actually saw individuals who never had a thought process of doing something with their kids were able to go and take their kids to the movies. And that may not sound like something big to many of us here, but to some child, that was very important to them. We've also seen individuals be able to get apartments, get furniture, get those important things that they need, and to feel whole, to feel like they have the right and they are able to go out and purchase things just like everybody else and not budgeting whether I should do this or pay a bill or something like that. So I will ask that you definitely support this program.
And is our intention, if we were to expand this, with it's so successful, that we would ever expand this to the city, or that we would use the findings to lobby the state or the federal government to expand their programs? What would be the vision or the goal if this were successful and continues to be successful, where you would want to see this to go?
Well, definitely got to move beyond the municipality, beyond the local level, and into the state space. Our mayor definitely is about, or our previous mayor. Let me say that. Is definitely a big time advocate for this, and I would imagine anything that he does moving forward, he will definitely be promoting this sort of thing. We do know that we got to get beyond the local municipalities. We got to get to the state level. There's an understanding about how people receive funding, and we did a great thing in terms of how we set our pilots up to be pilots that were about individuals, are for individuals who are experiencing the cliff effect. These are working people. These are individuals who are paying their taxes and doing what they need to do, but just simply cannot make ends meet in a lot of instances. So ultimately, it's about that sort of thing on a state level and a national level. So the policy has to move definitely beyond where we currently are, what we're doing in terms of the pilots, and move further on into policy that definitely drives this.
And Councilman, just to directly answer your question, it's a standing item when we engage with both our members of the state delegation as well as the congressional delegation. And so it's always a standing item whenever I have the opportunity to talk to Congressman McClellan as well as Senators Kane and Warner. So they know this is something that the city of Richmond would like to see continue at the state and federal levels.
I think one question I want to ask more that's specific is I asked about the overhead cost basically of the program, and you had an estimate. I'd really like to know a more specific, accurate, or precise budget of that too.
We can provide you with a specific number. We're happy to do that and follow up, and we can provide that number across all 4 cohorts.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. And, one parting thought that I will leave with you all as you look to the next evolution of this, DCAO DeSager very smartly mentioned that guaranteed income comes in many forms. The tax credit the early childhood tax credit's great example of that. There are a lot of states that started with guaranteed income pilots and then moved to statewide programs. Massachusetts comes to mind. They have an incredible, and what they did is they actually invested. They took all their guaranteed. They took their pilots. They took the success, and they actually invested in housing for folks who were at 40% of the AMI and below. And so, what I would like to see us do, and I've mentioned local choice vouchers now like a broken record for the last several years. What I would like to see us do is with our colleagues, we're going to start having some discussion around how to get really targeted for meeting the housing need for those who are at 40% of the AMI and below. And that could be the next iteration of this program. And if you haven't heard of, tenant-based vouchers, local choice subsidies, it is guaranteed income in another form. However, it provides it doesn't have if we're going to target single moms in particular, not having the exclusionary criteria on SNAP, TANF, and all the other, Medicaid, that knocks out most of our single moms. So, if that's the population that we are really trying to target and serve, and ironically, the population that's being displaced at the highest levels across our city, then creating a subsidy or either be it home ownership or for rent, a rental subsidy to provide for housing, guaranteed housing for those families is probably a really smart thing to do for a city that's still number 2 in evictions. So I think we just need to be, we got money over here, we got a need over here. Be really smart and targeted about that. So so more to come on that. And as our committee members work through that, and I just appreciate you sharing with us, all the good things that this program has done, because there is no question that a guaranteed income program, in whatever form or fashion that takes, is the right and equitable thing to do. All right, so who's up? Who's on next? We've got.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We've got early childhood. All right, Miss Eva, step on up.
Good afternoon. I'm Eva Colin. I'm a senior policy advisor and I lead our Office of Children and Families. And I'm excited to be talking to you today about our Early Childhood Care and Education Trust Fund, which is another form of guaranteed basic income, if we want to put it in that context. So I do want to make sure we're aligned on the objectives for this presentation, because as we reviewed it with colleagues, we can fall down a lot of different rabbit holes. There's a lot of conversations to be had about the information that on the slide in the deck that follows. Specifically today, we want to make sure we're all aligned on the historical context that led to the decision to establish this fund, as well as certain data that is informing it. We want to review progress to date this fiscal year, and we also want to make sure we're aligned on what opportunities we've identified for refinement and growth going forward. So these are our 3 goals for today. I'm going to try to control myself from falling down rabbit holes, and so I will also move us along if we need to, but I'm always happy to talk about this and happy to come back and talk again. But today, for the purposes of efficiency and getting to the point, we're going to review the objectives on the screen. To that end, we're going to run through definitions and background, make sure that we're all aligned on the words we're using and what they mean. We'll provide an overview of the trust fund itself, the progress this year, and then additional context, which Councilwoman Lynch covers the preliminary dashboarding that we've talked about moving forward with. So we'll start with definitions and background. So first of all, when we talk about early childhood care and education, we are referring to organized programs, whether home or center-based, for children from birth until kindergarten. When we're discussing this, we're not typically talking about babysitting, nannying, some of the more informal care provisions that many families access. I do want to name that in places where we see more universal approaches from the federal level, parental leave is considered a form of early childhood care and education. And so governments invest in paid family leave, which then you don't actually see a huge uptick of families participating in infant care or toddler care in that setting. They instead start to participate in the broader system older. In the United States, we're really looking at infants and toddlers too, because we don't have paid parental leave at scale. So I want to name that when we're thinking about places that are universal, the United States has certain challenges to that end. Second, early learning experience is a much more expansive term. We know that all activities that promote child development are considered early learning experiences. We raise that because we know that high quality early learning experiences are what are predictive of life and school success. That doesn't only happen in an organized setting. Friend and family networks refer to informal care like babysitting or pop-in care, nannying, things like that. And finally, mixed delivery is another term that I used to mix up a lot, even as the supposed expert in this space. But that's when we're talking about publicly funded slots that are in a community-based program. We also have a number of funding streams. And so we're talking about definitions. It's not just the vocabulary we just reviewed, but besides the trust fund, the 5 funding streams on the slide in front of you are the primary methods of funding early care and education in Richmond. The Child Care Subsidy Program is funded through primarily through the Child Care and Development Block Credit from federal government through the VDOE and DSS, and is administered locally by Richmond DSS. Children ages 0 to 12 are served through that program. So that supports school leaders with after-school programs. We have about over 400 kids who participate that way. Eligibility there is 85% of state median income. Early Head Start is administered through HHS, the Department of Health and Human Services at the federal level, directly to Richmond Public Schools. That serves children ages 0 to 2, though my understanding is that in RPS that tends to focus on the twos, the toddlers and twos, less the actual infants. And that's a 100% federal poverty level. Head Start is administered similarly through to RPS by the federal government, and that serves children, preschoolers, ages 3, 4, and early 5s before they start kindergarten. Again, 100% federal poverty. Mixed delivery is from the Virginia Department of Education budget that goes through the Virginia Early Childhood Foundation into our Ready Region lead agency, and that's Thrive Birth to 5. They serve children 0 to 5. The eligibility for family income is 200% federal poverty level. There are other criteria that they use, including single parents and additional indicators that a family may not be able to afford community-based preschool or childcare. And finally, the Virginia Preschool Initiative is funded from the VDOE budget directly to school divisions. And that serves children they have 3s, they have 4s, up to kindergarten, and that's 200% federal poverty level. I will note that for those administered through Richmond Public Schools, the school divisions have the opportunity to send those slots to community provider settings as well in mixed delivery settings. So some background. The reason why we're talking to you today is we've had a lot of research internationally, nationally, longitudinally, and then a lot of community engagement at the local level. We know that early learning experiences have a tremendous impact on academic and life success. And there are multi-generational benefits. Investing in early childhood care and education allows caregivers to work, it produces economic productivity, and sets kids up to succeed in school and in life. As a function of the investments in the state and federal level during COVID, and also at the local level, because Richmond City decided to invest $2 million of our ARPA grant funds into early childhood, we've seen significant uptick in family income, in employment participation, and other things that drive economic impact more broadly. The Maggie Walker Commission, over a decade ago now, identified early childhood as a priority to community wealth building, as well as the Dreams for RPS version 1.0 back in 2018. And so as a result of both the Maggie Walker Commission and the strategic plan from RPS, in the Children's Cabinet in 2018 to 2019 focused on how we could expand access to preschool as a collaborative approach. That body was at the time composed of members of administrations on both sides, RPS and the city, as well as community members and other stakeholders. Some facts and figures just to have as a point of reference. This is population under 5. Roughly, we don't have great granular data here. This is all from American Community Survey through the census. But ultimately, we can assess that we have about 3,000 children, age 0, age 1, age 2, age 3, age 4. I do want to note that in the United States, we don't have a good predictive model to determine what would be the optimal participation here. Like, of these 13,487 children, if childcare was available, how many of them would participate before kindergarten? And again, that's because the indicators where they are universal, they have parental leave. And so it's difficult to be able to assess, if we're only investing in early childhood care and education, what the uptick would be. When we talk about eligibility levels, I just want to make sure people had the money, the funding levels in front of them. State median income for a family of 4 is $141,000, 525. So 85% of that is about $120,000, and folks are eligible for subsidy. Local median income is slightly lower than the state median income, but not significantly so. So that's just notable, because when we're talking about affordability in Richmond, subsidy is close to getting it all the way right. Federal poverty level for a 4-person household is $32,150 in year 2025, and so 200% is then $64,300. So this is just to note that most of our streams for early childhood are dependent on the federal poverty level. But we know that cost of living and median income might be a more predictive factor on early childhood costs. Additionally, one point of reference is the historical enrollment in Richmond Public Schools. So the bulk of those slots are administered through RPS. And what we've learned over the years is that RPS is not enrolling all the kids who enter kindergarten in RPS. They're not given all the slots for every 4-year-old or every 3-year-old, to be sure. But what we're seeing ultimately is that over half in some years of 4-year-olds who are rising kindergartners in RPS if they are attending preschool, they're attending it in community settings. And so as we looked at the ECCE Trust Fund, we targeted those community settings to be able to meet demand of our families. I'll pause there.
Point of clarification.
Mm-hmm.
When you say that we are under enrolled at Head Start. Refresh our memories. Isn't it kind of like a needs-based application? So you every year you put in for the number of slots that you've used, and then they approve you for those slots?
I
Or
am
not every year, but every
not going to answer on behalf of RPS. I apologize. Yeah, there's Richmond Public Schools should answer that question.
Well, can we get? Well, I do not believe our superintendent is joining us. I did hear that he's caught up. Well, we need to get that now because this has been a consistent challenge. Okay. Interesting. All right.
One thing I do want to note, though, is that there's two things that pop up here on this slide is that when you see declining enrollment in kindergarten, is also pacing, right? We're seeing declining, but I do want to name that this is not unique to Richmond. We're in the midst of a global, what's called baby bust. Contemporary millennial households have on average about one fewer household member than the generation before us. There's a lot of reasons for that. But ultimately, what we were in 2018, the Headhunter report released a study that predicted that school populations would decrease by 8% nationwide within 10 years. Birth rates have actually declined faster than they expected, largely probably due to COVID outcomes of that. There was initial baby boom in that little window when folks were home, but ultimately we saw reductions in the birth rate. So this is not to say that RPS is unique in declining enrollment over time. Whether in kindergarten or in preschool, we just have fewer babies. And when we look at population growth in Richmond, we look at the American Community Survey. In 2017, Richmond had about 220,000 residents and about 39,786 children under 18. In 2023, which is the most recent data, there were 229,595 total residents and still 39,894 children under 18. So while our population is growing, our school-age population, our early childhood population is not. So I just want to name that.
Did we ever pull the data from our TANF caseload and see how many kids attached to those cases were 0 to 5? Because hypothetically, that would give us a pretty good idea or notion of penetration rate for Head Start enrollment, correct? And DSS subsidy voucher utilization, correct?
One of our ongoing priorities is getting clearer on the various ways we can predict effective saturation rate. We have not pulled that explicitly for Head Start or for subsidy, but there's a lot of data that we're trying to make sure we're aligning and determining what is the best way for us to assess how many total slots we need to be able to serve every child who needs it in Richmond. And that's the big, hairy question.
Can you all take that as a takeaway and ask our DSS director to pull that data once and for all? Because we've been talking about this for like 2 years. Let's get that number so that way we have a good idea of the universe of kids that are eligible, not only because that way we can bump that up against how many DSS subsidy, how many voucher kids we have, how many Head Start enrollments we have. I mean, we've got to get an idea of who the eligible population is so that, I'm not looking at this 1,723 number and thinking, my God, we severely, we're completely stifled and potentially doing harm to our early pre-K population because this ain't it. This is not the universe this is not even close to the total universe of need that could be on both any of the Head Start, DSS voucher subsidy, whatever. So let's get that number from our DSS director for next meeting. That shouldn't be terribly hard to pull because you can go into our system and look at the delineate by case, in TANF case. That would be my suggestion.
And I'll add, I think we've mentioned this in front of this body before. There's an opportunity to work with RPS for the slots that are allocated to them to be administered in community settings. I think there are capacity challenges that have prevented us from getting there, but that is a point of ongoing inquiry is before we're investing city dollars, how are we ensuring that every available slot that's administered to whomever is used, like that this is truly last dollar, because we are the the level of government with the least ability to afford this cost. And so that's a piece that I think we're continuing to try to zero in on. What are our barriers to leveraging all the available resources as they stand? So with that, we're going to jump into overview of the trust fund. The Thrive Birth to 5, we've got our friends from Thrive here today. We've got Ann and Jody from Thrive. We're tasked with the administration of this. We identified them because they are the Ready Region lead agency for Central Virginia. Ready Region Central has 17 localities. Richmond is one of them. And they were identified through a competitive solicitation at the state level. And so that meant that when it was time for us to figure out how we were getting city dollars into community providers' purses, they were out there as an already identified entity that was doing this because they were administering the mixed delivery grants. So partnering with Thrive allowed us a few different efficiencies. Number one, they are already administering mixed delivery, and given the timeline, which we'll run through in just a second, we wanted to make sure we were getting cash into the hands of providers and getting kids into slots as quickly as possible. And so we were able to leverage their experience with mixed delivery to build out an initial year, and so that we're iterating on and refining as we go forward. But this way, we were able to fill slots this year by not building something completely from scratch. They also manage the quality monitoring process for all publicly funded early childhood care and education providers in the region. So that's any family day home, like a home-based provider, a religious exempt provider, a traditional center, even RPS preschools are in their caseload of quality monitoring. So they also have clear line of sight into who's out there and what our providers are, where our providers are and who need support. Ultimately, we ended up pursuing this investment in response to the federal funding cliff. That was really the call to action. We saw stagnancy in funding at the federal level, and then again, the General Assembly, while it did increase state investment, this was, I think, the first year that state funding contributed to the CCSP Child Care Subsidy Program. It's insufficient. I mean, we have so much more need. And so as a result, the city of Richmond invested $1 million in fiscal year 25 to establish this fund. Federal pandemic relief bolstered existing funding streams, and for the first time, we had no wait list on CCSP, which was massive. But with, again, congressional inaction and insufficient state investments, we did fall off a federal funding cliff at the end of fiscal year 2024. And I have had conversations with colleagues and friends at DSS and elsewhere where it was like 12:01 a.m. on July 1, we now had wait lists. And so I think we're looking at over 400 kids on the wait list right now for subsidy in Richmond. We also approached the trust fund zeroing in on specific priorities. And these priorities were identified, again, through data and community engagement. For one, we wanted to make sure we were investing in infant and toddler slots. When I showed you the slide earlier about the different funding streams, this is the one that has the least support and also costs the most to operate. In FY23, and that was before the fiscal cliff, there was just one publicly funded slot for every 8 infants and toddlers under 200% federal poverty level in our region. We don't have updated data on that, but we can predict that has become more stark. We also looked at home-based providers. We know that in many of our communities, home-based providers are the preferred form of care. And so as a result of that, we looked at figuring out how we could get dollars to family day homes, et cetera. We also looked at how we could identify therapeutic programs, ones that are specifically targeted to kids who've experienced trauma. We wanted to prioritize cost of quality reimbursements. So if you were to Google how much it costs to go to childcare, it's what you're going to see as a price tag is typically less than it would really cost that program to run. And so we wanted to ensure that we were using the research available to us to align with what it truly costs to run a quality program. So did deep stakeholder engagement, and then we're including an annual needs assessment in the scope of services in our grant contract with the organization.
Okay, so this is what you assess, because I'm paying way more than this. So this is what you assessed as all the parents in the room. I know we're like, what? What a deal. So this is what you've assessed as the
when we get to cost of quality,
as the the operational cost.
You're
talking about. I'm on slide 14, Eva.
We're on 12.
We got. All right.
It's okay. I'm ready to talk about that, but we'll get there. Any questions about the priorities that we included in our contract with Thrive Birth to 5? And then again, on the overhead question, we permit up to 10% of this grant to go towards administrative costs because there is a lot of legwork to get the dollars in communities and provide support to the providers. So I will name that as well. Looking at slots, $1 million sounds like a lot. with how much it costs, we got 60 slots. This feels like a big win. I do recognize that this seems like a small number for the amount of money we've invested, but this is the reality of what it costs to run these programs. And so as we look through this, I also want to name that we decided to deprioritize other potential investments in order to afford slots in the near term because we recognize the need with the wait lists. So instead of, adding in programmatic quality improvement, which is something that our providers have indicated they would benefit from, we wanted to prioritize getting slots into community provider settings as quickly as possible so we could serve kids with need right away. As you can see, we've heavily indexed for the infants and toddlers and 2-year-olds. We do have 16 3- and 4-year-olds in the program or funded through these slots, but ultimately these are our slot allocations. This is the cost of quality slide that Chair Lynch was referencing for those of us who aren't quite there yet. This is data. This is we're using the state model. We also are finalizing our local numbers as well, so that we'll be able to deploy those in future years of the program. But this is again not far off from what we've initially assessed in 2021 when we did our first cost modeling study. Infants cost a program about $23,196 a year to run. Preschoolers cost $14,300 for a year. For those of us with young children, what you might see is that you're paying slightly more than that for preschool. And that is because most providers are subsidizing their infants and toddlers by making a little bit of profit off of preschool. So if you're a full pay family, I know this is true for me, I'm spending more than $14,000 a year on preschool, but that's because they're charging less than that for the infant rates. So there's a lot of math in here, but I just want to make sure that people are like, I don't pay that. It is something that comes up a lot. In terms of fiscal year 2025 and where we've been and where we've been, and then we'll talk about where we're going. Since July, the budget was approved, and then July 1, the fiscal year starts. And so July 1 is when we get to start engaging with the attorney on developing the contract. So from July to September, we were engaged deeply in contract negotiation while Thrive Birth to 5 started to engage providers to start to build awareness and start to identify potential participants in the trust fund. October to December was when the solicitation fully went live, providers applied, and then subawardees were notified. January to February, the window we're in right now, is children are being enrolled, and then there's ongoing support for providers as well. The providers who have received funding, and so we use the approach again that Mixed Delivery has used, and this again was for efficiency's sake rather than building something brand new. So Thrive Birth to 5 identified providers who could accommodate our kids in our city. We worked to make sure they were prioritizing citywide reach. And so what you see here is also a mix of family day homes and center-based care. And so I do want to name that when you see As We Grow University, that's actually a family day home. That's a provider who's operating out of their home. Same with Step by Step Family Daycare, Kids Spirit, and Footprints Childcare. So I flag that because sometimes people are surprised that something with savvy branding is actually a full business operating out of someone's home, but that's what these are. And then here's the map. And I'm sure we're all noticing some stuff about this map. I'll just pause there because I do want to name that as we look ahead, one of our number one priorities right now is identifying root causes of access gaps. That's happening through an annual needs assessment that's part of our contract with Thrive. But we're also doing additional review to understand kind of geographical preferences, caregiver preferences, what actually exists in communities. We know that there are a lot more formal childcare centers in certain parts of the city than others. And then we also know that there's a lot of informal friend and family networks that are providing care in other parts of the city. So then we're looking to prioritize solution to what we identify as those root causes. So in some cases, it's questions about how do we provide capacity to providers who are ineligible for this program right now because they might be a friend and family network and they're an informal provider and they've got a couple kids they're caring for totally lawfully, but are missing out on the opportunity to get this level of subsidy for the kids in their care. We're in conversations with philanthropy on this topic because this is certainly something that would be expensive to do at scale. We're also looking to address stronger collaboration across agencies through our Children's Cabinet. So the Children's Cabinet, I think we're at 4.0, is what we call our friends and our family and cousins. So it's City of Richmond agencies plus Richmond Public Schools, Richmond City Health District, Richmond Behavioral Health Authority. I believe Richmond, the Redevelopment and Housing Authority has also been invited. And so we're working to collaborate there so we have stronger references and referral processes so that we're making sure that families who are getting on the CCSP waitlist are referred to the opportunity to join a provider that has trust fund slots. And then finally, we're continuing to refine those processes to ensure quality experiences and equitable access among providers and families. And so to that end, we're working to really build out what it would look like to do deeper family engagement and figuring out how we're connecting the dots for families because there's just so many services to access in Richmond if you are eligible for publicly funded services. So the final slide is just going to be a bit of additional context. And Chair Lynch, this is where we've started to build out a dashboard. Ultimately, what we're looking at here is participation right now. This does not, to our earlier conversation, cover eligible population. This also doesn't necessarily reflect full allotments to each program. So this is how many kids are currently in these programs right now. And I have a glossary at the bottom, but I use abbreviations at the top row. So we've got the Child Care Subsidy Program, the Early Childhood Care and Education Trust Fund, Early Head Start Mixed Delivery, and the Virginia Preschool Initiative. And the asterisks with Early Head Start is that we're looking at Early Head Start as primarily toddlers. So while they are covered infant to 2, our understanding is the children enrolled in that program are predominantly toddlers. So I will pause there, questions, and answer questions however I may be able to.
So I think I'm trying to catch up a lot because I know that we're talking about how we want to increase enrollment and increase the need, but I guess I'm trying to understand. Will that also put stress on the trust fund? I mean, are we like we want to increase the need because the need is there? Is there like money going unused or like funding and grants that are available that are not available, or do we have the twin goals of increasing enrollment, which also will mean we'll definitely have to fund it, which we want to do, but it's going to go hand in hand. Like, is that the situation?
So I think I'm going to rephrase your question if that's okay and tell me if I've got it wrong. Is basically how are we addressing what increased demand means with limited funding capacity? Is that right? Or
yeah,
are
I
we
mean,
looking at other funding sources is what you're suggesting.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're not. Yes, you've got it. Thank you.
Okay. So at the end of the day, like I said before, I believe deeply, and this is as a policy person, that local government is least equipped to address this at scale. Like this was something that when we started this project, it was 2021, and we thought Build Back Better was going to pass, and that childcare and early childhood education was in there. So when that didn't happen, that shifted our approach. And so ultimately, we're trying to provide support in the face of kind of a dire situation. That is to say, before we're looking for other funding, and not to say that this couldn't use all the money in the world, we're very interested about both increasing impact while also increasing efficiency. So we know that there are slots that are unused through RPS preschool programs because of declining enrollments. There's a lot of reasons for that. RPS preschool ends its day with the elementary school timeline, and some end at 2:15, some end at 2:45. Many families can't make that work for their schedules. They follow an academic year calendar. There are no summer camps for 3 or 4-year-olds short of like St. Catherine's. So most families can't afford that. And so there's pieces here where families are not able to make that work for them. So they're looking to community settings. So on the one hand, one of our big points of inquiry is what needs to be true so that RPS can do what other school divisions do and send those slots to community settings, because that has not happened at saturation yet. And so there's an opportunity there before we're spending our own money. How are we leveraging that to support what is emerging as family preference? We are also working with funders. This morning I was with the Robbins Foundation, the Community Foundation. We are speaking regularly about how we are funding strategically and collaboratively so that to the extent possible, they're not making a grant to a nonprofit for a tuition scholarship that could be paid by something else. So ultimately trying to figure out how we're getting really efficient and using every available dollar while also continuing to figure out like what is our goal saturation rate.
So I think I heard that in terms of sort of like money kind of not quite being used like enough, there is that RPS under enrollment piece for RPS preschool, I think. Mm-hmm. Now, is that also the case? The RPS administers a lot of these like Head Start and things. Are there similar issues with enrollment being under the goal for Head Start, or is that only the preschool?
Head Start as well. So VPI, Head Start, and Early Head Start are their funded programs. And so what we've seen is under enrollment in those programs. Subsidy is not allocated that way. There's like a master bank of slots at the state level, and DSS at local level is helping people apply for those. And then as soon as those slots are up, they're put onto a wait list. So they're not allocated like, RPS gets a certain number of pre-K 4-year-old slots. That's not how subsidy is administered.
And then, point of clarification for committee member, the difference is what Eva is saying is one is categorically eligible based on income. It's an income eligibility. So the state has the funding already. It projects how many, and usually I think they use their TANF numbers to project how many, how much money they need in their coffers to be able to give us the local, the subsidy. Head Start enrollment is based on enrollment from the previous cycles.
RPS has the opportunity to submit an application for how many slots they want for Head Start, how many slots they want for VPI. The state does do an initial estimate of VPI based on kindergarten enrollments and economically disadvantaged data over time. CCSP has gotten fuzzier as they move to state median income and away from federal poverty level on the prediction side. And that's why we have like 40,000 kids statewide on wait lists. But yeah. Ultimately, we're doing a lot of herding cats because most of these things are outside of the locus of control of city government. And so we're trying to figure out how we are effectively shepherding resources while also investing what we can afford at the local level to help close gaps for families.
Is it universal that school districts administer Head Start programs? Is that like how it's always done? Is that how we've always done it? Is that how we always must do it?
Great question. So for Head Start, I'm going to differentiate between Head Start and VPI. VPI has traditionally been administered to school divisions. So since the 90s when it was initiated, it was sent to school districts to administer. That's a Virginia Preschool Initiative. It started with just 4-year-olds. About 5 years ago, they added 3-year-olds. Head Start, on the other hand, was founded in the early 1970s specifically to be administered by community action agencies. So the first grantee in Richmond was Cap Up, and they had it for like 20 years. Then VCU took it because Cap Up was no longer able to administer it. So VCU administered it until the early 2000s, and then ultimately they didn't want to do it anymore, and they were like, RPS, will you do it? And RPS said, sure. It's a little bit of a monkey on the back in Richmond. And so where we've seen this kind of bounce around has been this challenge of kind of figuring out who the right agency is to administer a program that's supposed to treat childcare as one intervention. They also work on a caregiver workforce, talent development, jobs training, healthcare connectedness, and other things like that.
Wait, who's they in that sentence?
Head Start itself is
see.
supposed to have this broader scope. So having an education agency administer it was not the original intent because it was seen as one input into a broader intervention.
Are there localities that use both their school districts and other outside partners? Like, can it be both?
There's different approaches nationally with Head Start. Some where the school division administers and they're sending slots to community providers. RPS is doing that. They're sending some slots to community providers. There are also situations where a grantee receives the slots and then administers those slots to a public school division to be able to provide, but they're not doing the administration.
And I mean, we have a National Head Start Association coming up in like May. Is it May or November? I can't remember. But
I think
it's
May.
coming up. Do we send anyone from RPS, like anybody that's
an RPS piece. So I'm not super clear on that. We're not at the table for those conversations.
okay? All right, Nicole's Councilmember Jones is gonna take several action items for RPS as our RPS ambassador. But from our end, what I do think I heard is a resounding need to get the penetration numbers. And then, so that would be, those are really two data points. One, what's our caseload of 0 to 5 I mean, we could use TANF, but you're right, Eva, that doesn't capture like our 200% of the FPL and below. So we have
Or
to
even the
figure that out.
85% SMI, so we get
Right. So we have to figure that out. But at least they give us a baseline number. So
Mhm.
let's capture, so like see if we can get that data. And then how many DSS applications are being submitted year to date?
Mhm.
And then how many active DSS vouchers are being allocated year to date? Or however you can do it year to date, or you can do it last year, whatever is
So
easier.
I will go back to slide 20 because we do have how many CCSP, how many kids are in the CCSP or in programs through CCSP right now. So we have total of 767 children in Richmond under age 5 who are in slots funded by CCSP. And I think we have a little over 400 on the wait list right now. Yeah.
Are these subsidy that are enrolled in
Yeah.
Head Start, or are they enrolled? Where are they enrolled?
So if we're looking
Anywhere?
at the top row, these are the different programs. So child care subsidy program, the total children enrolled under age 5 is 767.
Oh, I'm
We have
sorry.
60 kids in the trust fund, 46 in early Head Start, 507 in Head Start, 276 in mixed delivery, and 622 in Virginia Preschool Initiative.
Need to. I'm dense. I need to sit with this data for a little bit longer. But I think the penetration. So then what we want is the penetration number. So we
Right.
have been asking for that.
And so one of our top priorities is continuing to work with an ad hoc working group of partners from across the different agencies that are collecting data to make sure that we have a clearer sense of, we know how we manage waitlists, for instance, with DSS, but we aren't super clear on how RPS manages waitlists, for instance. So we want to get clear on that. And then we also want to make sure we have a better sense of year over year. So like preschool is 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, not just 4-year-olds, right? So we actually want to know how many 3-year-olds are in programs and how many 4-year-olds are in programs. And then where do we want to, and then we're working with national researchers to make sure we're investing in the right places.
Okay. Well, we have our homework cut out for us, so we will come back, and then in the spirit of President Newbill, because she was really working on this dashboard, we'll consult with her as to what else she wants to see, because this is good. This is a good start, but obviously we got to put some more meat on the bones here. All right. Well, thank you so much for that. I think next up, Ms. DeSager, and I know we're running short on time. I was going to try to get us out of here by 3:30, so if we can. Well, these are important topics, so I don't want you to rush, but.
Absolutely. So thank you so much. So Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, Councilwoman Jones, thank you so much for the opportunity to provide you with several updates this afternoon. First, thank you for your partnership. We've worked closely with council staff to really develop our presentation schedule for this year. We continue to work on and refine that. And so again, we appreciate the opportunity to bring then before you the 2 presentations we had today. So I want to share just a few updates for you on a number of our efforts. First, we're very excited to share that we are preparing for our 3rd annual Teen Summit. I get very excited when I talk about this initiative because it started with the city of Richmond, Henrico County, and Chesterfield County, and now Hanover County will be joining us this year. And so we are expanding the Teen Summit. In its inaugural year, the Teen Summit RVA, we actually saw just under 300 youth join us. In the second year, which was last year, we saw closer to 600 or so youth, and we're anticipating around that number, if not more, than this year. As a reminder, council members, I shared this with you a few months ago, but I want to make sure you haven't forgotten. Teen Summit is Saturday, March 22nd. I will be following up with all members of council to confirm whether or not you're able to join us in person, and also to confirm the exact time that we may be able to anticipate you. As you can imagine, It's a busy day with a lot of teenagers. And so we do need to know specific times, again, so that we'll know to receive you. Teen Summit for our newest member of council. This is an incredible regional collaborative effort. We work closely with a teen executive, a steering committee that helps develop a set of experiences or workshops, as we would call them, for the day. This year's focus is primarily geared towards career exploration and entrepreneurship, and that is at the request of those teens. We will have a number of discussions, including an entrepreneurship panel. So we'll have a number of different speakers joining us throughout the day, and again, focused on career exploration and entrepreneurship. Now, there are actually several other clusters as well. So career exploration, entrepreneurship. There's one on critical thinking as our third cluster. And again, we're working in partnership with the youth to develop this. And then the fourth and final, we hope you're going to be pleased with this, is financial wellness or financial literacy. So it will be an absolutely dynamic day. And if you couldn't tell, I'm very excited about this year's event. Next, I wanted to share that City Council, you all appropriated $115,000 to the underground kitchen. And we just wanted to share that UGK continues to be a wonderful partner. We wanted to provide you with an update on just some of the work that they are doing. As you all know, they are using the kitchen at the Annie Giles Community Resource and Training Center. They provide food to a number of child care centers, but more specifically, I want to focus on a pilot effort that we're working closely with them on. This has been championed by your colleague, Councilwoman Ellen Robertson, but it's a Smart Soul Food Pilot Program. This program actually is a multi-week program where families actually come together. Essentially, we're working with an academic partner, working with VCU. We're then sitting down with those families, assessing their health needs at the onset of the program, providing them with healthy meals and demonstrations to ensure they know how to prepare then healthy food. And we're going to do then a final assessment at the end. So we just wanted to provide that update to you. We look forward to bringing Underground Kitchen forward in the coming months as they continue this effort. But again, they continue to be a wonderful partner. Next, we wanted to share an update on the next step in our community health assessment. As you all recall, our partners with the Richmond Henrico Health District have been before us several times. You've heard from Tamara, you've heard from Jasmine, that both of them have been before us to talk about the health assessment. We shared with you when we were launching it in partnership with Henrico County. We came back before you when we had the results. I am now here to share with you that the next phase of that work has started, and that is the Community Health Improvement Plan. We take the assessment and the results from the assessment, and we're now building an improvement plan. We just had our steering committee kickoff meeting just last week, and so as that work continues, I will always bring back updates so you all know then how that is progressing, but we're just getting started. There will be, I believe, 3 different subcommittees. I would say that the leading issue that has emerged across the city of Richmond as well as Henrico County, but particularly in the city, has been around just violence, community violence, also behavioral and mental health. So those were the kind of 2 leading areas of concern that were elevated by residents through this process. And so that is where we are leaning in our planning efforts. But again, it's just getting started. The next update I wanted to share with you is on our fiscal year 24 non-departmental grants program annual impact report, and this is actually a thank you. And so this actually came out of just feedback that we received directly from you, Councilwoman Lynch, around our non-departmental grants process. This committee was very engaged, and so we presented then that initial presentation to you all, this committee, during fiscal year 23. We then, based on your feedback as well as feedback then from other council members who were to refine that. And so Councilman Breton, Councilwoman Jones, I know that you were able to receive that presentation, and Councilwoman Lynch, I believe that council staff then also provided you with a copy of that impact report as well. Dominic and I, my team and I were working closely with Council Vice President Jordan, who also shared feedback and wanting to see perhaps the outcomes in a bit more of a streamlined manner. We did have a meeting earlier today, so we will follow back up with you all. We're working to distill the information information that we shared last week down a little bit more so it's easier for you all to then follow. We recognize this is the time of year where you're getting a lot of information from us because you're going to have your budget sessions. And so we want to make it as easy as possible for you all to be able to make informed decisions on the budget. If you have questions about specific organizations, also, we're happy to address those. The final update that I will share before turning it over to my colleague, Tiffany Ford, Director of the Department of Neighborhood and Community Services, to provide an update on our inclement weather overflow shelter efforts, will be on resident recovery. We continue to do our best to support our residents in need, especially those that are in crisis. Following the water outage that we saw a few weeks ago. As you all know, we are using the Family Crisis Fund as that mechanism. We did receive an overwhelming response, which we anticipated. We know that residents were already in need and in crisis. And then that was only exacerbated, unfortunately, for many by the water outage. So we continuously are reviewing those applications or those requests that came in through RVA 311. We then are working with referral partner agencies to help us verify resident eligibility. That's just helping expand our capacity in this process. And then from there, once eligibility is confirmed, and we have to confirm that there is in fact a debt that is owed, Humankind then receives that information, the full application from that resident, and then they are able to process payment. So again, we did want to share with you just an update that we continue that process and working with our partners, but we do want to set an expectation that it will take time. That is because of the sheer number of applications we received, and that is also because of the time that we take when we're assessing each individual's need. It takes time to sit on the phone with a resident. It takes time to help them gather then the information that they need to verify the debt. And quite frankly, it takes time sometimes to get in contact with the creditor to make the payment. Right? But we are working through the process and we're committed to it, and we will consistently bring back updates. With that being said, we wanted to provide you with all of those updates. We hope that they are helpful as you continue to do your work, and I will invite up Tiffany Ford.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and Councilwoman Jones. So this Monday, we stood up our third iteration of the inclement weather overflow shelter. We have 60 beds, a capacity of 60 beds. At peak, we've reached 50, so that's 45 men and 5 women. Our goal has been to provide a safe and comfortable and somewhat enjoyable environment for our guests that are experiencing homelessness. And I think in a large part, we've managed to do that. And a lot of that, the thanks goes to my staff who have stepped up, NCS staff, human services staff, who have stepped up on top of their regular jobs to come and man shifts. I also want to thank our regional partners, Hanover, Henrico, and Chesterfield. They provided staffing as well, 2 volunteers per shift. And that has made all the difference. And I also want to thank Ms. Rhonda Sneed because she has helped by providing meals, delicious meals, and helping to fill the gaps when there are issues where people needed clothing. Many times I have reached out to her and said, Rhonda, we need an extra large jacket or extra, some pants. And she is there with the quickness to provide that. So it has been a great experience. I will say, like I said earlier, this has been our third iteration. And I think with each iteration, we note how we can be better. This iteration, we were able to provide better SOPs and to train on those SOPs and provide that training to our volunteers as well as our security staff. We do debriefings after each shift. We make sure we acknowledge when things happen during shifts so that folks are prepared for the next shift. So overall, I would say for me, it has been a vastly, better experience than the first time, which I will say was pretty darn good. When, in hindsight, we did really well because people are committed. There is no one on my staff that takes the work that we do lightly. They show up, they want to be the best people they can for the people that we serve. And so I just want to acknowledge that because I have a policy advisor who is going to be a shift lead this evening, on top of the 8-hour day he just had. He's the one who helped draft those SOPs. He's the one who trained those folks. And I'm just giving you one example of somebody who has stepped out of their space to really support this shelter. The other things I want to do is I do want to address those incidents. We are dealing with people. And we don't need to talk about the mental health issues. We can put those to the side. Anytime you deal with people, you're going to have some issues. So when it comes to the family that came in, um, we have to have folks check in. We have to, especially in a low barrier shelter, we have to have an awareness of any kids that are involved because again, it's a low barrier shelter. And so there was some confusion about how best to accommodate the family who didn't at the time want shelter and just wanted to be in this space, and make sure that they were safe. And so, with that being said, I don't want to get into their business because it is their private matter. But I have gone to my staff and make sure that we're clear on protocols with how to deal with these things going forward and make sure that we are prepared so that if something like this happens again, we can respond in a manner that fits the situation. When it comes to the incident with the security guard, I'm going to say the security guards are grown people who are doing a job. Some of them do it better than others, but they are our partners throughout the 3 iterations of the shelters. We have had really top-notch security who have learned and grown with us. In this particular incident, there was a problem with the security staff. Diane Wilmore, who you've heard that name, was a shift lead at the time. She quickly stepped in. She quickly separated the guard from the guest. She made sure that she focused on the guest to figure out what had happened. She then immediately, like I said, made sure the security guard was taken away from the situation. We dismissed her from the shelter. We then called the company and asked them not to put her on anything that dealt with us going forward. I can't get into personnel matters, but I will say she will not be working with us in that capacity again. Like I said, we are doing the best we can. And y'all know you work in different environments, things happen. And so when things happen, we address them. We try to make sure that they don't happen again and that we train for better going forward. And so that's really my update right now. We will continue. Like I said, we are continuing the shelter through Saturday at noon. So I will be on shifts tonight, tomorrow, and Saturday morning through noon, as well as the other members of my team. And so wish us luck because we always need luck whenever we're, trying to help folks. So thank you. Do you have any questions?
Why are you looking over here? Thank you so much, Ms. Ford. Thank you for the updates. And I mean, I just don't even know what to say, to be honest. I mean, I hear, from the community's perspective and everything that they are experiencing. I hear from you all's side and everything that you are experiencing. And I just, at this moment, sometimes just feel powerless because it's like we don't even have a true system. I mean, you all are doing the best that you can with the tools you have, but it's at the same time, it's not sustainable. We're speaking about others' mental health, but we're not even talking about the mental health of the staff and the people so working together, that is only going to continue to escalate and create problems. And so I don't know. We got to figure something out.
We agree, Councilwoman Jones, and if I may, I would just share that we are working incredibly closely with our regional partners. I've said it before and I will continue to say it. This is not a challenge that the city of Richmond alone can solve. We have been leading in this space now for a number of years, right? You can look at the city of Richmond's investments in this space and investments in our residents in need, but we cannot do it by ourselves, and we've been doing that by ourselves. And I would say up until recently. So I do want to remind council that Henrico County did come forward last fiscal year, with just over $800,000 to contribute towards the additional supports that we stood up in the partnership with Home Again and the Salvation Army. Chesterfield County, Hanover County, and Henrico County are all supporting them with staff. We're having multiple challenges here. We are seeing more people in crisis. Arguably, it is only going to get worse, especially given the changes that we're seeing at the federal level and some of the policy implications. When you look at what happened with the federal grant loan freeze, I just want to remind this body that the Greater Richmond Continuum of Care is funded primarily through the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. It's just over $9 million that it receives, with the lion's share going to support year-round homeless shelter around the region. If that funding isn't received, what then happens, right? So it is a very big issue that, again, we are consistently around the table with our regional partners to try to solve for. Again, we here in the city are focused on several things. We continue to have a focus on how can we potentially position ourselves to expand inclement weather shelter. We do know that there are some folks that may not come inside until the weather is the absolute worst. We're trying to look at how can we potentially work with partners to expand year-round shelter, right? We're looking at how we can expand outreach, but none of these things happen without partners that are willing to say yes, right? But that yes then comes with needs for funding, right? So all of this is connected, and that's why it's going to be so important for our regional partners surrounding jurisdictions to stand with us and to partner with us on any future solutions. The team did an exercise where we actually just went through the past several fiscal years and looked at the city of Richmond's investments in crisis supports, not just homeless services, but family crisis fund, eviction diversion, right, other supports. The number is extraordinary, but that's also because the need is extraordinary. But then by comparison, I would say then again, the city of Richmond continues to lead. And so in order for us to most effectively address this, we're going to have greater partnership. Councilwoman Lynch, I know, has been a champion on this issue for years. We have spent a lot of time together walking through the needs, what we're looking for. And again, as we continue to have these conversations, when I have an update and I have the yes, I'll bring it back to you. Until that time, we continue to sit around the table and try to do our best to figure out then those next steps and find those partners that are willing to come to the table. We've had recently some fruitful conversations, and so we're excited about some of the conversations we're having on the regional level. And those continue. But again, until we have a more, dedicated, confirmed partnership agreement, then we continue to be the ones taking the lead. Now, we're going to continue doing what we need to do to support our residents in need. I will say that. But again, I appreciate the understanding that it does come at a cost. It does come at a cost for staff that are trying to do double duty right now.
Okay. Any other parting?
May I?
Yes, we did not. Did we cut? I don't.
I wanted to ask some follow-ups about the water recovery system.
Oh, okay, good.
Okay, well.
But
you can, and you can send me the info, but all right, cool. Well, I was just looking for some statistics about, and you can send it after the fact, average amount that went out, median or average, the normal amount that went. Also interested to know.
So is the question related to water
recovery?
The resident fund? Recovery, the family crisis fund?
Exactly.
So we are still actively reviewing applications. Remember, we accepted applications January 31st is when we opened them, and we closed them on February 3rd. So right now, I don't have numbers to provide you because we're still actively reviewing, and we've received thousands of requests.
Okay.
So we are actively making contact with those residents, verifying their eligibility. So that's the piece that's going to take some time. Perhaps in that next meeting, we'll have a more dedicated update on specific numbers. But right now, we're still reviewing those applications or those requests.
And since we're using this existing fund, is there a chance that stuff that fund would have gone towards like eviction support or something might get sort of brought into water recovery crisis funds instead? Like, is this crowding out other types of help that this fund originally would have been used for?
The fund's purpose has not shifted in this process. So residents contacting us who may have been in crisis, whether it was a crisis before the water outage or a crisis specifically related to the water outage, the actual payments that we make and the criteria has not changed. So residents actually can receive rental assistance, mortgage assistance, assistance with car repairs, medical bills, and other expenses through this. So that part has not changed at all. It's the same. And we imagine that, again, those crises and those needs are consistent, whether it was a water outage or not. Remember, we also separately have an eviction diversion fund. That's not managed by my portfolio. The city's eviction diversion fund is actually managed by the housing and the planning and economic development portfolio under DCAO Sharon Ebert, and it's administered through the city's Department of Housing and Community Development. That partner organization is Southside.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, and we did have Councilmember Newbill in here. I think she just popped back out. Oh, she's popped back out, but I did want to acknowledge her before she left. I just have one announcement. Did anything else? So we are looking as a follow-up from our last committee meeting. Committee members, check your calendars, mark your calendars. I know Councilmember Jones, we may have one conflict, maybe possibly. On the 20th? Okay. On the 20th of March, we are looking to do a town hall / stakeholders roundtable with our homeless services stakeholders that is going to be open to anyone and everyone. That's going to be a public meeting because we're inviting multiple council members. And the discussion will really be around, there are several questions that I think we need to have some community feedback on, discussion around. So that will be a very highly structured meeting. I do not, when I run meetings, as you all know, I love to hear from everybody, but we want it to be we want it to be productive. We don't want it to be so much of a dialogue that we can't hear each other. So we're going to facilitate a highly structured meeting, but we want everyone to be able to have input and feedback on some of these items that we want to discuss around the ICW, homeless services generally. And then like what I think would be really rich for discussion is talking about solutions and putting some solutions on the table and saying, hey, here's how DC does it. What do you guys feel about this? Here's how Massachusetts is doing it. Here's how Philadelphia is doing it. And give the stakeholders, because we've all, been a little bit myopic and held hostage by the system that is, Central Virginia / Richmond. And give us some exposure to different models around the country that we may want to try and really just get y'all's reactions to that. So that's going to be probably a 2.5 hour long meeting. So block off, grab your popcorn, block off your calendars, come in your comfortable shoes, because we're going to do some, real deep diving and down and dirty work there. But hopefully that'll be a productive discussion. And we really want to, this is really an open table. This is not, we're interested in inviting, all the different various players that are in this space. So in any case, look forward to that meeting and hope to see some of you there if you can make it. So in any case, approval of the minutes.
The minutes to be approved are for December 12, 2024, for the Education and Human Services Standing Committee meeting held at 2 p.m. If there are no amendments or corrections, then the minutes will stand approved as presented. Those minutes have been approved. Thank you.
Thank you. And staff report?
Thank you, ma'am. I don't have a staff report, but it would help if we could just quickly verify the data requests for DSS. Yes. So I will follow up with you after this to make sure I've captured those accurately and the plans for the meeting on March 20th. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And welcome to our new and esteemed staff member for this committee. All right. Without further ado, this meeting stands adjourned.